Hello and welcome to the second season of our Better Riding series. So, this is where we aim to evolve riders' education because the better we are at something, the more we're going to enjoy it, right? So, we've joined forces with Honda Motorcycles UK to create this series of self help videos as well as written content packed full of tips, advice, and simple but useful exercises designed to help motorcycle riders of all experiences or ability to get more from your riding. So it produces or provides expert information, practice drills that help increase rider confidence and machine control, and skills that supplement traditional post test training techniques. We've also teamed up with professional motorbike coach Mark McVeigh, an experienced rider coach, ex-MotoGP engineer, riding academy owner for over 20 years, and the inventor of Moto DNA. And now Mark has taught more than 10,000 riders to be safer, smarter, and more confident. And here he is, Mr. McVeigh. Good day. How are you, mate?
Yes, very good, Michael. And yourself?
Yeah, good, thanks. I was going to say good morning, but of course it's morning here, but very well into the evening where you are.
It is nearly beer o'clock here. Thanks.
Beer o'clock. So what are we going to talk about today, Mr. McVeigh?
Yes, vision. Super important, obviously, on a motorcycle. How to see on your bike and that kind of bit of a visual strategy. Seems
Okay.
obvious, but many riders, the vision's like super poor. When we look at even this is the UK Department of Transport, and half of motorbike crashes are single vehicle. About the other half are with a car, and the driver, the rider, failed to look properly. So it's super interesting to look at that, and so we can understand there's a problem and what the problem is. Um, and 40 years ago, I was 17 in one of these statistics, too many crashes. And I
Oh,
actually went racing. That was kind of like to get me away off the road and really started to understand vision. When I got on the track, and then after 40 years of training road riders, we've kind of learned a lot and developed a kind of optimal visual strategy, if you like.
so vision from a motorbike rider, of course, is very different to, or the optimum vision is different to driving any other vehicle. But what does good vision look like for a motorbike rider?
Yeah, so I guess rather than opinion, we're trying to look at data and research. First thing is to understand what riders are looking at. Is there a problem, right? What are they actually looking at versus the kind of optimal visual strategy? And at our school, we've researched thousands of riders, data-driven sensors on bikes and the riders, eye tracking, GPS IMU. So we've kind of had like a laboratory, if you like, to really do a deep dive and learn more about lots of things in motorbikes, but in this case, the vision.
Really interesting. I understand a bit more about this eye tracking because several years ago we recorded a video and wrote a feature about eye tracking, about just this example. We took a track day sort of newcomer, myself as a track day average rider, and then we had Jason O'Halloran, the Australian BSB rider. We all did several laps on the same bike on the same circuit, but we used this contraption that fitted under our helmet that could pick out. So it knew where we were looking, but it was also looking back at our pupil, so it could sense, so much like the technology up there. So very, very interesting to see the results. And I'd urge people who are watching this to go and find that video elsewhere. In fact, I might put a link to it in the content section below. But Mark, what did tell me what you learned about vision from your eye tracking?
Yeah, well, the vision is just like it's huge. It's linked to so many things when you're riding a bike, and obviously the best riders, they have great vision, and it's super interesting to try and understand that. And you can see with this video here, even though it's kind of dancing about a bit, that the instrumentation is quite sensitive to light, but you can see the general kind of focal point is to the vanishing point or the limit point, rather than looking at these other bikes that are going past. They're trying to look at that vanishing point the whole time. So you steer the bike automatically with your eyes, and it helps your riding flow versus a lower skilled rider that we see a lot of steering jerk in.
Steering jerk. What's that?
Yeah, steering jerk. So basically, run this clip, you can see the yellow, which is the rider's not looking far enough ahead, which is the green bit. So the rider's kind of focusing on the road surface instead of that kind of vanishing point. And it's super interesting. It's kind of referred to as the sight distance to stopping distance ratio. And if that's below 1, the distance for the rider to stop is greater than the distance they're actually looking ahead. And you can see this in steering jerk, because what's happening is they're looking down at the ground, essentially, and everything's kind of like a surprise. So they're constantly making steering corrections. And you've heard the term 50 pensing the corner for a kind of inexperienced or low skilled rider versus the good rider, Jason, or a good road rider, looking much further ahead. They're planning their line and scanning for potential hazards as well. And that kind of results in a more smooth and progressive inputs. We actually came across some super interesting research. Now, motorbike academic research, it can be often grey and inconclusive, but this guy Nakayama, and we can put the link in the description, he discovered that motorcyclists fixate on the road 30% of the time, the road surface, compared to car drivers who barely fixated on the road surface. So stuff like that, super interesting to understand.
That's nearly a third of the time that the rider is looking, presumably immediately in front.
Yeah, looking at the road surface. So fixate, meaning spending too much time looking at the road surface. We all kind of look down, you're looking for potholes and things that can harm us, but we should be part of scanning with the main vision up, looking for vanishing points, say, in the country roads. But of course, in a car, you don't really care about the surface because you're not going to fall off in a car, right?
No, true. So, I mean, again, a lot of people talk about you go where you look and those kind of little messages. But from your experience, Mark, where should you be looking? Where should we be looking? And does that evolve with experience?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess changes with the environment too. So if on a motorway or a country road like this case, and a lot of crashes occur on corners. So if we look at this, the main gaze is on that vanishing point or the limit point. But also then with strong peripheral performance, super important to have good peripherals. And then those peripherals are kind of like highlighting somewhere where maybe you should scan for a potential hazard. But forward observation, that's the key thing to plan for every eventuality, if you like. And then, of course, good 360-degree situational awareness, lifesavers and mirrors, important too.
Yeah, interesting stuff. And now, of course, on modern day technology, modern day bikes, you've got the that blind spot recognition technology, haven't you, in mirrors? And sometimes, I mean, I get to ride. I'm fortunate enough to get to ride a lot of modern day motorcycles, and you can sometimes rely a little bit too much on that. So, but tell me, in your experience, Mark, talk to me a little bit more about peripheral vision, especially on a motorcycle.
Yeah, well, I guess it's peripherals, kind of the part of your vision that occurs to the side, outside your mind focus or your gaze. If you see this image, you've obviously got the car, and then to the side, it's not as clear because that's kind of like the peripheral part of the vision center. So having that good peripheral is really important for lots of different things. Reduces the chance of target fixation or tunnel vision. The other thing about peripheral is it goes to a different part of the brain than the visual center. So it's kind of like a fight or flight tool. So boxers know this. They don't look at the fists directly because peripherally they can react quicker as a result. So it's very powerful, and we teach a lot of visual skills because the benefits for riding are there for the taking.
Absolutely critical. But I've certainly heard of target fixation only since being a rider. But perhaps for those that are a little bit newer to riding, do you want to talk a little bit more about what it is, first of all, and how we can avoid it?
Yeah, so I guess target fixation, it's kind of like a panic where you fixate on the danger. And tunnel vision is commonly referred to that as well. So it's essentially when you're riding over your head on a motorbike. That's the biggest issue. Like, for example, if we look at this, here's a car coming, and then boom, there's a car kind of on the wrong side of the road. So you kind of when you get a surprise, you will sink to that level of the training. Okay, so people will look at this car, but of course you go where you look. So that's a big risk. Whereas the rider should be focusing on where they need to go. So in this case, where's your escape route? So you're swerving out of the way, you're on the brakes, you're looking where you want to go. and you can keep the car in your visual, in your peripheral. You can understand where it is peripherally so that you can still react. You don't need to look directly at the car. And of course, we look at the aviation industry a lot, and we want to train riders to be ready for a common crash scenario, just like the aviation industry. So use that mind gaze to look for the escape route, and then peripherally, you can watch the car from the side of your vision.
So as human beings, we're all predetermined, aren't we, to recognize or look for three different things, being food, a mate, or danger. And of course, in this case, danger. But have you got any drills? Do you teach any drills that can improve vision on a bike?
Well, it's funny you say that. I might digress a little bit, but I remember when I was 17 on my 250 LC, and there was a pretty girl in a car beside me getting my attention. So we were kind of making eyes at each other, and I looked up and there was a bus stopped right in front of me in my line. And that was probably my first rolling endo, let's put it that way. But
She impressed?
yeah, I don't know. She was away and I was trying to stay on the bike, crazy, but the things you do. But yeah, drills. Yeah, listen, simply being mindful of what's around you will improve your peripheral. So without looking directly at an object, you might be able to say, yep, there's a red post box to my right, or there's a white transit van on that side. So that's kind of part of it. But of course, the drills, we've got this fine looking rider here on a nice Honda doing a bit of a practice drill. And this is the
Yes, he
corner
looks very
avoidance.
handsome and talented.
He's smashing. So you can see he's been riding on this white line, and then basically when the instructor flagged, which was the hazard, swerve and brake onto the outside line. So that was a great way for you to practice that drill. So how did you feel when you did that drill, Michael?
Yeah, it was interesting. It's mega to be able to do the practicing because you learn so much that you think is automatic, and as soon as you start training your brain to do something a little bit different, it becomes, well, after doing it once or twice, not natural as such, but by the time you practice and practice and practice, and you just all the time improving your ability to ride, but also the situational awareness and therefore safety.
Yeah, 100%. That's exactly right.
But Marky, in terms of other than visiting the opticians, do you have are there any other tips or advice on how one might be able to improve their motorcycle vision?
So far, we've discussed the best ways to kind of use your vision, but the kind of last piece of the puzzle then is optimizing your strategy. And in this example here, this is a busy environment. What should we be looking at? Is there a pedestrian or a good-looking girl or boy over here? If you're a lady, rider, the car's here. So it's really important to not fixate on the wrong thing. So what's the biggest thing that's kind of going to hurt you? If you're looking at the car ahead, well, that car's not really going to be the biggest risk because it's so far in front. But if you look these other cars, there's a ute here sitting and a car at this junction, they're probably the things that you should kind of keep an eye on. And of course, it's not only should you not fixate on the wrong thing, it's a dynamic situation as well. So motorbike riders, they don't get Alzheimer's, right? Your brain's just going a million miles an hour.
There's a lot of information to process in a very short space of time, especially in a busy environment like that. Because that particular piece of footage, that you'll be around that corner and away in a matter of seconds, but there's so much to process. And it's always very important, isn't it, to make sure that you are alert and aware. It's no good riding when you're tired or
exactly right.
But this leads us on to this kind of, well, we talked about peripheral vision, but there's almost a rider's sixth sense, isn't there? But have you got any kind of information about that?
Yeah, a lot of people talk about the sixth sense riding, and of course it is important, but I kind of think it's a traditional thinking because it's you're relying on the rider's intuition. And the problem with that is intuition comes from experience. And if you don't have the experience, it's kind of risky because you're learning through close calls like me in the bus or worse. And that's one of the things, motorbikecoach.com, we kind of developed this modern riding system because like you and me, we've been through all these kind of close calls. And when we're riding on the road, we're more aware. We've got that sixth sense, but we need to pass that on and share that with you and more less experienced riders. So we want to fast track their kind of riding, their performance on the road, and they can have more fun, and the risk goes right down. So it's super important to think about it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. So finishing off then, if I'm going to take just sort of one great tip away from my journey back home again today, what's it going to be?
Yep. So it's got to be you're invisible. Like you've heard it before, but I think that's probably the most important thing. Think you are invisible. And if we go back to this junction here, I never trust the rider or the driver looking at me. I look at the wheels, the front wheels. Are they moving, and what direction are they pointed? So pretend you're invisible and just trust the wheels. Never trust that the driver's actually looking at you.
That's a really good tip.
It served me well. So, I mean, vision strategy when riding your motorbike, how to be seen, that bit we'll talk about in a future video. And of course, it's impossible to cover all aspects of better riding it in a short video. And I always like to talk about the 10,000 hours to mastery versus the 20 hours to get your license. So it's just the regular practice, that kind of micro learning, super important for becoming a better rider.
Fantastic. Mark, thank you as always. Your insight is invaluable.
Thank you.
So good to see you again.
No worries. Thanks, Michael. You take it easy. I'm off for my beer o'clock now. I'll see you next time.
Have one for us.
Thanks, mate.
Brilliant. Mark and I will be back next time, and we're going to discuss hazard perception. But in the meantime, don't forget to check out all the other better riding episodes in the series so far. Go and find us at Bennett's Bike Club. That's our new community website, a bit like a forum. Or we have a Facebook group called Bennett's BikeSocial. Come and join us there. It's about 9,000 members, and we're very, very active there. You can also find out about how to save on over 200 different motorcycling discounts and offers by becoming a BikeSocial member. Now, BikeSocial membership is free for those who insure their bikes directly with Bennett's. Otherwise, you can still become a member at £6 a month or £60 a year. Fabulous. Thanks for joining us. Any questions, thoughts, comments, do let us know in the comment section below, and we'll see you next time.
Honda Motorcycles are supporting this series because safety is one of their key business pillars, and their quest for safety inspires their innovations in products, technology, and education, which is why they're committed to achieving zero traffic fatalities involving Honda mobility products worldwide by 2050.